you know how you're asking me about, oh my god, okay, what are your opinions on like so and so thing that happened in the world? I can tell you an answer for that because mera tak kam hai cheeza bare janna. Because we fed a mentality of like conservatives. If you're looking at conservatives, they're like hyper conservative. If you're looking at liberals, they're hyper liberal. So a lot of times individuals do struggle fully to
have some outside help. Have a hybrid system. This is crazy what you just told me. So.
I know. Minute I was like, oh my god, main Monday na gaal nahi karni.
Okay, welcome Harisharan. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for coming on the podcast. I recently got to know that you were in the elections and in the university, so I thought I'll reach out to you and see what you're up to.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So how does it work, the election thing? If you can quickly explain, touch upon that.
100%. So these were the student union elections for UMSU, which means UMSU is University of Manitoba Students' Union. It serves as the main like governance body for all students, and it has all of our faculty, student associations, and student clubs all come under it as well. So this was the first year actually in our elections that we used the ranked ballot system. So for anyone that doesn't know, because it's actually not very common, the ranked ballot system works in a way where instead of voting for one individual, you rank all the top contender choices, and it only works if there's more than 2 people running for each position. It was my first year, so it was great. I didn't actually get to witness a normal ballot. This was the one and only that I've been aware of. And I would say the election left me with a very inspired experience to stay involved as well, because I've noticed a lot of first-year students don't actually understand how university governance works or how diplomacy with your peers works as well when it comes to like different faculty associations. So I've been interested in this since a pretty young age, and I have friends in the university that are older than me that, you know, were on the students' union as executives in the past. So I already knew that this was something that I wanted to get involved in, and it was my first year, so I was like, you know, there's nothing to lose, might as well.
Yeah, I mean, and it's an interesting experience altogether because win or lose, I mean, you get to meet new people, and then you said diplomacy. So tell me, what system were they using before? You said for the first time they used ranked system, and do you know what was in place before?
Yeah, so they were using general electoral systems, which means you would just like vote your one and only option. So
not
it was basically
ranking.
Pardon?
Not ranking.
Yeah, not ranking.
Okay.
So like even if there were 4 people running, you would only choose like your top choice. And the reason they got rid of that system was it's kind of unfair to hundreds of voters that are voting for other people, because technically you're wasting a vote that way, right? So for example, if I know, like hypothetical example for a real world, if I know that you know, Manitoba is NDP, and if I vote conservative, I know I'm like wasting my vote. The university decided to use a ranked ballot system, so even if your first choice doesn't win, you have a higher choice of getting your representative through.
Interesting, but our government, the way our government works is there's a losing side, winning side, and the votes that goes to the losing side gets wasted, right?
Yeah. I mean, this isn't that different. I like the ranked ballot system just in case of the mentality, like it's ethical comparatively for people that are voting like second and third. But at the end of the day, you're still gonna lose or win, because again, like last place gets eliminated. So in case if you had 3 contenders like I did, last place got eliminated, it was between first and second place. I was runner up, but that realistically means that, you know, I was like the conservatives for Manitoba.
And what's the idea behind giving the second place votes to the first place?
Yeah, so there's actually multiple rounds as need be for ranked ballot. So let's say that the third place got eliminated. They need to rank in basis of your votes getting divided by ratio. It's weird math. I don't like that. But basically the way that works is whoever your second place is, it's supposed to be your votes being put up like still for use. So let's say my contender was Grace, right?
Being ethical, so your vote goes to the first
Exactly.
place.
So your vote is still getting used. Your vote doesn't get wasted, but it gets used in a different way.
Do you think voter cares about that part?
I think 2 years ago in UMSU elections, there was actually an outrage that broke out because the voter count was too close for two individuals, which means people that like were on the losing side.
Yeah.
Almost 50% of the population voted for them, and yet they lost.
Mm.
So that's where some voters were actually really pissed off about it because they were like, we voted, it was so close, and yet our vote still got wasted. It was almost a majority at the end of the day, which is why they turned it this way. Our voter turnout's really low, which is concerning. University of Manitoba voter turnout was about 11% for like the longest time. It was the highest last year, and it was 20%, and this year it went back to 16. So only about a few thousand students vote out of the 2,700. Sorry, 27,000.
27,000 students are recruited in the university at any time, eh?
Yeah.
Or studying in the university.
27 to 30.
30,000. That's a big number.
Yeah, and only about 2,000 to 3,000 vote.
I wonder, I mean, we have seen this trend with our economies or the governments that the voter count is dropping and there is a big push to get the voter count up even with the countries. And I wonder why that is sometimes.
I feel like it's because of two major reasons, depending on what type of economy you're looking at. One, the population is generally losing trust in the government nowadays, which means they don't feel like their votes are actually doing anything. Why vote, right? Two, a lot of, like, for example, if you're looking at Canada, a lot of our population wasn't born and raised here. So that means they don't understand like the value of their vote for this country because they're so attached to their home countries. They don't really care about this government aside from whatever directly affects them, not understanding that, your vote is what's directly affecting you. So there's these two branches that we've been seeing come out as trends. And then there's the third population that genuinely just doesn't care because they, either have been raised in a way where politics is always like a taboo in families, so they just don't vote.
I never understood this fact when, in families they say don't talk about politics. Yeah. I'm like, why? Because if you don't talk about politics, we're going to get affected by it anyhow. Talk about it, don't talk about it, doesn't matter because at the end of the day, what decisions are made up top will ripple down to the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
And people need to pay more attention. Don't get consumed by it completely, but pay close attention or, give it some time. Have your thoughts and don't fix yourself in one box. Don't be a conservative. Don't be liberal right off the bat. Study both, see how it goes, and then pick your ideologies.
Yeah, and I mean, each government also brings its own pros and cons, right? So just because you voted like liberal one year doesn't mean that you're going to vote liberal the next year too. I feel like people also forget that you're not supposed to stay bound to a party if it doesn't continuously fulfill your needs. Again, I feel like politics is just not a discussed enough field when it comes to like your average coffee chats in home, which is why it's so easy to brush under the table too, since it's like the conversation of those elites type of stuff. But yeah.
And so goes for religion too. That is another one, you don't bring up usually because you're like, okay, this can cause some, this can shake up the petri dish or whatnot. So we avoid politics, we avoid religion, and then you're right about this that countries in general, people with Canada especially, a lot of immigration population, so they don't really care about. Even me, including, I'd be like, elections, who cares? This is a general common trend these days. You'll see, and if we don't vote, and the voting pool gets shorter and shorter or shrinks in size, that is concerning because that's the fundamental thing of any democracy in first place.
Yeah. I mean, the bigger concern is also the mentality that like, there's the saying like dana pani chalda ta chalan do, right? I feel like the bigger concern with that is so many people are under the impression that, oh my God, we're employed, we're getting like our general daily day sources, so we're fine.
We're stable, yeah.
Except there's another saying like give them bread and entertainment and they won't know, right? So the mentality that the government's using against you as well, like depending on how much you believe in or not in the government, the fact that the less you vote, the easier it's to turn a democracy into a dictatorship.
True. I agree with that.
It's so easy to sway after that, right?
And I was having this thought the other day, and if you pick up history, I could be wrong on this, but the trend says in any country, if there is a revolution that is brought by the youth or 20 from 20-year-old to 30, 35, or the youth of the country brings any change. And if you dumb down the youth or dull down the youth, who's going to bring the change?
Yep.
And
which is why I'm so concerned when I see the type of media my brother consumes. He's 10 years old. And we aren't very different from each other. Like, I would say that sometimes siblings are polar opposite, but with Adav and myself, like, we're almost the same people when it comes to, like, competitiveness, our drive for, like, specific things, emotional empathy, right? However, I've noticed that the difference between Adav and I come when you look at the type of, like, media we were raised with. And there's a concept of, like, brain rot, and I'm fine with it because, like, at the end of the day, I'm Gen Z too. I fall under that category. But I see it so differently for Adav to the point where I sometimes wonder, like, oh my God, 10-year-old me versus 10-year-old him. And we're technically a part of the same generation too. There is no, like, generation gap between us.
yeah.
And yet the difference is so big just because of the type of, like, education system that he's under, the type of media that he's consuming, the type of conversations that are expected out of kids are dumbed down now. It's
That's true.
Scary, to say the least.
My brother here is, how old are you?
16.
I'm 26. So he's 10 years younger than me. I see him consuming all this entertainment. And we are so distracted these days. There's screen everywhere, right? Used to be one screen back in the day, or like one or two screens in a house. Now there's iPads, mobile, you name it.
I mean, at least 2 screens per person, right?
Yeah, so, and we are trying to get everything around us smart TVs, smart computers, smart fridge, I've seen some, and smart vacuums,
There's
whatnot.
washing machines too now.
Smart.
I recently found that
And
out.
we are getting dumber and dumber, eh? So I wonder, and then it makes me question where the survival of the fittest will fit in. If we are getting dumber and the machines are getting smarter, it's inevitable before we get AGI or whatnot taken over, and they'll run everything.
I strongly, like, considering that one of the things that, since I'm involved with governance and government outside of the university as well, like on a more provincial scale, one thing that I would say, considering that I've also worked and done research for AI parameters, our government on almost every scale lacks parameters when it comes to AI usage or AI consumption as well. Which has led a lot of people to think that, like, oh my God, AI is going to take over, or, like, CGIs. I strongly believe it will never take over. There will always be a human behind it, except it will turn into very fast if we don't start working on parameters. You'll see, like, the Adani group owning this share, and like 60% of the population is really lost it. There's still a human behind the process, so technically AI hasn't taken over, but it's, again, like, you have the elitist class utilizing it as a tool and weapon again, like every other thing was.
And then they'll gatekeep the best of the technology for themselves, like always. So you think there should be some regulations in place to keep it in check?
I think it's necessary. If you're having AI branch into streams like medical, and like it's overall in STEM fields. Let's start off with that. AI has already incorporated itself really well into STEM fields. It is inevitable now to avoid the use of any artificial intelligence in any field, including the arts now. So based off of that and the fact that it's like at the fingertips of a 6-year-old child, you need to have parameters, because how are you using this to perform surgeries or higher class, coding for apps that you're using, or literally engineering tools, right?
Yeah.
On the other hand, a 6-year-old can be using it as whatever too. Where are we setting the line?
And my issue with AI in general is it's okay for STEM guys to have it, or STEM people to, use it and mingle with it and find out what comes out, right? My problem is, like you said, when 2-year-old, 6-year-old starts to chatting and thinks it's his friend or her friend, and that disintegrates our social fabric to the point ki, okay, jada munda is talking to the chat GPT or whatnot and thinking he's talking to a friend, and then he doesn't go out there, makes real bonds and
ਤੁਸੀਂ friend ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋ, I was at an ethics cafe, like AI ethics cafe is basically like a seminar, ਜਿਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਮੁੰਡੇ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਖੁਦ ਆ ਕੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ, ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮੇਰੀ ਗਰਲਫ੍ਰੈਂਡ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨੀ ਆਉਂਦੀ, ਮੈਂ AI ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦਾ ਇਹ ਜਾਣਨ ਲਈ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਰਿਪਲਾਈ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਕਰਾਂ
See?
ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਮੈਂ AI screenshots ਭੇਜਦਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਮੈਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਕਰਾਂ and when he mentioned this we had a few other people mention to us like oh my god yeah you know we found out that so and so in our class has chatbot girlfriends they think the AI is their girlfriend. Human interaction like ਸਾਰਾ ਗਿਆ
ਉਹੀ ਤੇ
ਖੁਦ ਦੀ girlfriend ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨੀ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ in person ਕੀ ਕਰੋਗੇ like if she meets you in person you're not going to be texting the AI
exactly
while you're talking
you'll have to
her.
be face to her and so the way human interaction works there's a lot of nuances expressions and undertones you have to watch for, right? Because I can say pani pila and then I can say pani pi ya jo bhi, you know, there's
100%.
tones to it and with AI you don't really understand so this is crazy what you just told me so
ਮੈਨੂੰ ਡਰ ਲੱਗ ਪਿਆ I was like oh my god ਮੈਂ ਮੁੰਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨੀ
because it is dumbing down us again because
100%.
even if you think emails we're trying to get ChatGPT to write it for us and our logic our reasoning is getting out of whack so all good sorry I got distracted I told you distracted me on but so you said you're outside of university governance you are involved into the provincial level as well how so if you can explain
I work as an advisor to some of our ministers and MLAs. So I'm strictly nonpartisan just because of some of the boards that I've been on. For example, if I had to give one example, it would be the Manitoba Student Advisory Council. It's a provincial level board. All of our school divisions fall under it. We only work under one person, and that's directly our Minister of Early Education and Childhood Learning. So the way my involvement on a provincial level, what it's been is I've been incorporated in multiple boards, multiple youth councils, and aside from that, there have also been, you know, private projects that I've worked with where I've served as an advisor to our ministers for environment, Minister of Education, mature education, and Minister of Early Childhood Learning.
Mature education, what's that?
So like university education.
Okay, one thing, Harisharan, I want you to do is tell the audience difference between bipartisan and the non-partisan, because a lot of people get confused, even me including. So if you can,
I'd be happy to. So partisan means that you affiliate with one specific political party. For example, if I was partisan, which I'm not, I would say that, oh, like, you know, I support and vote for the NDP. That would be public knowledge. I wouldn't be scared of like sharing that information online either. Non-partisan means I work with the government, not for a government.
any party, okay.
And I also don't publicly like side with one party. So if I was to meet a conservative, I would not agree with them as much, but I would incorporate as much with them as I would with an NDP, as I would with a liberal. And I'm non-partisan strictly because when you fall under governance and not directly politics, you have a duty to make sure that you're representing the people that fall under you, right? Not under, but like your peers. So I know I have friends that are conservative and I also have friends that are liberal. I'm working as an advisor. I need to make sure both of their interests are at heart.
So you're working for your fellow citizens and residents, okay?
Exactly, which is why it's in some of my contracts. I'm not allowed to be on social media mentioning which side I support. I'm allowed to vote, but a lot of councils are very strict with this information, and I personally feel like the university elections should be as well. However, they don't have anything like that yet.
So, and bipartisan, if you can touch upon that as well.
Yeah, bipartisan is basically the same track as being partisan.
But you agree with both sides, is that?
Yeah, bipartisan's like, for example, if I can't, like, think of it this way. There's partisan, which means I have a bias towards one. There's non-partisan, which means I completely do not align fully with any. And then there's bipartisan, which is along the lines of like liberal and conservative. However, like I support conservative economy and liberal human rights.
So just in the middle and, you know, making a concoction of both.
Yeah, not the smartest idea. And it's very unheard of too, except like I would, if I had to say, I would call them confused log.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I would say at the same time, it does get hard in our current political state, considering, you know, if conservatives, if you're looking at conservatives, they're like hyper conservative. If you're looking at liberals, they're hyper liberal. So a lot of times individuals do struggle fully tying themselves down to one party, which is where I suggest that, you know, instead of like tying yourself down to a party, what you should be doing is like researching future philosophies that the party has. A lot of times politics, this is so much more prominent in like Indian politics, except this is slowly taking a turn for Canadian politics as well. The goal in Parliament has become to prove the other side wrong instead of actually working towards like civic achievement.
Isn't that been a problem for democracies for the longest time? Because of the partisans and whatnot. And I wonder, I used to live in Vancouver, right? For 4 years, 5 years, I've lived there. So I would see this woke agenda. And back then, I didn't know all this to the detail I do now. And then I moved to Winnipeg. And then I realized how flawed people in Vancouver are thinking about a lot of these issues. And, you know, you live in a leftist city and then you subconsciously gain their habits or whatnot and their ideologies. And I was realizing when I moved here that, I was a liberal there and I was very progressive liberal. Okay, this is okay, that is okay, drug centers are okay, everything's okay, open up mushroom stores, why not? And
sorry, I love the way you said that, open up the mushroom stores.
yeah, because I was looking at, I came in 2016, so right at the peak of marijuana being legalized and all that. And I believe 2017 or 18, they passed the bill or something when it was federally legal.
Yeah.
And so I was seeing all this happening right in front of me and I was like, what is going on? So I was new to the country, right? I don't fully understand what's going on. And at the same time, I'm trying to make sense of everything. I'm not, okay, so the government says they're open for, they're progressive and let's go. So I'm like, okay, do this, do that. Why not? Drug centers, perfect. I'm up for it. Yeah, why not? And I came here. I realized how wrong or how flawed my thinking was in some ways because I was boxing myself into this liberal thing. And soon enough, I realized there's this other school of thought, conservative, and how they think is more into the reality, based into the reality. And the point I'm trying to make here is it's hard for a single individual to just say I'm conservative, oh I'm liberal, I'm progressive liberal or whatnot. So that's where confused people come. Like me, let's say, okay, minu aav nahi samajh aa raha, what is it? Trying to make sense of both sides. What do you think NDP today in power is doing wrong? Because you can't.
Yeah,
say.
I was about to just be like, I can't say. If I'm gonna be fully honest, I feel like I'm allowed to be a critic, right?
Or what advice would you give them? Because you're advisory, right? To some of them.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like my biggest thing with the government after we've had a change of government in Parliament has been we've been doing a great job in actually getting voices on the table, except we haven't been doing a great job of actually taking those voices and utilizing them towards the cause. For example, international student healthcare protests that are happening for students. You hear them, you don't actually do anything about them. NDP as a government does a lot better job of actually listening to the people than I've seen with other governments. However, right? You can't just
take action as well, yeah.
You can't just bring someone to the table. It feels like limelight sometimes. I'm not saying it's a bad government. Again, like they've gotten some great things across the table for our education system, like the food and nutrition program. After the G7 summit in 2024-ish year that we had for education, that was my first year on the advisory council, and Wayne Abasco from the Conservatives at that time, he was an independent chair. However, he was the Minister of Early Education and Childhood Learning. He attended that summit on behalf of Canada because since we work with provincial ministers, what happens is each year we send one instead of all of them. When he came back, like his ideas to me seemed very reasonable, and I'm glad that the NDP government, after they did come in, the Manitoba Student Advisory Council didn't change much. Like, usually what I expected to happen was, oh my God, no, a conservative person had these philosophies that they were trying to imply. We will not be being on that same track anymore. However, one thing that I do appreciate them for is they built on top of it instead of trying to take away from it. But again, that was from a very like youth perspective. You're working with 16 to 18-year-olds. They don't have real authority in the parliament. It's so much easier for you to be on the same page as them than it is for you to like, which is where I feel like I've seen so many gaps. We do a great job at listening. I feel like we still lack at applying. Which is like, I also couldn't tell if it was like limelight where you're just sort of using it to show others that you're doing it, or if it was like actual authentic, you know, we are a, you know, people-centered government. We don't care whose policy this was. If it's a good policy, we're going to build on it. I don't see that happening enough.
So a thing with these politics and these parties is there's a lot of virtue signaling going on too. Like they'll try and signal that we're better, we have higher moral ground or whatnot, and they'll say certain things, but nothing gets fulfilled eventually. So when are the next provincial elections?
They're coming up.
They're coming up? Okay. I recently came across, I didn't know this party existed before, PC, Progressive Conservative.
Yeah, that is our conservative party.
Okay. So that, okay.
Yes. It works a little different in Canada because Canada and US have very similar parties, I want to say. However, we have different names because at the end of the day, like, our philosophies do differ a bit from them. For example, like time and time again, I've seen NDP Canada agree with Liberals America. So
okay.
We work a little differently, but their conservatives is our PC.
So their right wing is our PC.
Yeah.
So wait, hold on. Make me sense of this. So we have Liberal, which is Mark Carney right now, and then we have this other guy, Pierre Poilievre. So that's conservative.
Yes, he is.
Is that progressive conservative?
Yes.
Okay. I thought progressive conservative is something just provincial
It is
party.
Provincial. You need to remember that each province is allowed to stand their own parties up.
Okay.
So, for example, we also have a Greens party.
Yeah.
We also have the Quebecois. They're hyper French. So basically,
And they do have a stronghold in Quebec, right?
Yes, in Quebec, but not really for the rest of Canada. But that doesn't change the fact that technically you are allowed to still open up new seats for technically another party provincially if you have that type of funding, which means like these aren't our only 5. There could be more. It does change a little bit from province to province. So for example, like, you know, we've been seeing an entire thing between our premier and Doug Ford. Not really matching stances. However, like, you look at them in the parliament and they're both still standing for the same thing when it comes to our federal level. So that's just kind of how it works. Like, provinces still do differ. Like, Liberal USA doesn't always equal to Liberal Canada. Same way Liberal Manitoba doesn't always equal to Liberal, like, Alberta.
Makes sense.
So there are slight differences, but at the end of the day, you have, like, Carney on a federal level is the one that's setting the setting the scale for how, like, everything looks for the bigger structure, except that doesn't change the fact that when you're looking at, like, other premiers, they do still have their slightly more or less biased provincial takes.
Interesting. Yeah. I want to ask you this, Harisharan. So recently you saw that Air Canada thing that happened in LaGuardia Airport. Did you get the chance? Okay. So you know how the CEO of Air Canada came out and gave a statement, and none of it was in French.
Yeah.
And there's a big uproar that how come the CEO of Air Canada doesn't speak French and should resign. Isn't that a bit too much? Because, okay, he doesn't speak French, I understand. What are your thoughts, though?
My thoughts are, if you are in governance, well, not governance. Governance works a bit differently. I feel like if you are an elected official, it is necessary for you to have some articulation in, like, the language of your country.
Some understanding, yeah,
right?
100%.
However, he's not an elected official. And, like, again, I mean politically. I don't mean in the sense of, like, a corporation. Obviously, for a corporation, he is. However, when it comes to, like, your parliament, like, he doesn't have a chair. He is representing you, yes. Is it necessary for him to be on a fair accommodating scale? Also, yes. Should all official things that are being released by Air Canada as, like, our big, you know,
Canadian airline, yeah.
yeah, I want to say Canadian airline, and then I also want to say like as our big known like national like pride too, because yes, you're a Canadian airline, you have people's hearts attached to you on like a global scale. So there's a lot of Canadians that are living in the US too that probably look towards Air Canada for specific types of like, I want to say belonging, right?
100%. No, that
When
makes
it
sense.
comes to that concept, I feel like official messages should be released in both English and French, especially like when you're living in a government where we do have, again, a full party dedicated to this one thing. Should it be under the concept of like, oh my God, resign? No, I would love to hear our Indian politicians speak in fluent Sanskrit to me. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, it's tricky. I mean, you want this head of the Air Canada wants to speak in French, and if it didn't, you have this resentment against him. If that's your point, in that regards, every employee of Canada Post should speak French.
I feel like people's difference comes with a barrier when it comes to like a general employee and like
Yeah.
the heads, right?
Heads.
So for
Okay.
example, like not every MLA's constituency assistant knows how to speak French. Yet most MLAs do know how to speak in French though. It's that difference, right? And even the MLAs that I know that aren't fluent in French, they are like fluent enough that they can give like the speech in both languages. Whether it's rehearsed or not, whether they are like understanding what they're saying or not, they make sure to at least put that effort out there, which is appreciated again. I feel like that burden of responsibility falls on the heads. Is that ideal? No. But at the end of the day, what about our world is ideal?
That's true. Nothing is a level playing ground. Yeah. So explain me this. We as a country, Canada, is full of natural resources. Why don't we export?
I feel like this is a question directly for like a minister. I feel
Yeah.
like when it comes to exporting, we don't have enough harmony within our own country for that. For example, if you're looking at Alberta, right? Natural resources, Alberta is like one of the first
Abundant.
provinces, right?
Yeah.
However, when it comes to our secure holds with Alberta, what do we see? We see Alberta wanting to become a part of the US every now and then, which isn't happening at a ground level, but that doesn't change the fact that it was an uproar.
But the
when it
sentiment is
happened,
there.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
So I feel like when your hub of natural resources is not in like a protected connection, it's gonna happen. That plus I don't actually have an honest answer when you look at it from an economic lens, considering like it could be a really easy like branch for us with other countries as alliances as well or as trade routes.
Well, I'll give you leverage, 100%.
Right?
Yes.
However, like the real answer is I'm fully unaware of why we aren't doing it enough.
No, you brought up a very cool point, which is the country itself is not harmony with the idea of what needs to be done completely. So that does make some sense to me because if you know extracting out resources will make your people rich, right? I would question why not. Let's do it because if you're able to make your people rich, get them out of poverty, not poverty, but expand their living style or what. So, I mean, you'll get more hold. You'll be able to dominate global geopolitics with leverage because if you have rare earth minerals and whatnot, so use it. And what's the point if other countries are using it? You are in competition with everyone else. China doesn't care about environment as much and is drilling holes crazy and getting everything out, uranium, nickel, cobalt, whatever. So yeah.
I mean, I feel like the problem with that also comes under, I'm glad that you mentioned the environment. Canada has stricter environment policies than a lot of other countries that are in this, like, I want to say game, basically, because at the end of the day, with the way Trump is, like, handing out tariffs, it is a game, right? And to an extent, Canada's conflict also comes under the fact that, like, how much we care about environment for our country doesn't only limit to our country. We also see how much we're, like, importing or exporting, or what we are importing and exporting also matters to us. Because for some reason, our trade also is a part of our environmental policies. Like, ਆਪਾਂ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਕੁ ਲੈ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਕਿੰਨਾ ਕੁ ਦੇ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਆਪਾਂ per year ਕਿੰਨਾ ਕੁ ਕੱਢ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ, right? And how much we're preserving and how we're preserving it. There's a lot more stricter regulations in Canada than, for example, again, like China, the
Doesn't care.
standards in hell with China. But I mean, hey, like if you look at their economy, they're drilling up, down, left, and right, but they're also like exporting crazy, they're manufacturing crazy, yet you still don't technically see their population's like standard of living be that high. On the contrary, Canada's not doing it, but our standard of living is technically higher than China's. So I feel like that's also one of the things that isn't pressuring our politicians to do so.
Yeah.
Also, like if you're looking at generic things like your income per capita, right? Again, Canada's already thriving in that. Do I think that we're okay the way we are? No. There is a lot more left to be done. I mean, poverty is still a concern for us. Our housing crisis went insane right after COVID. Like inflation for us, especially with general necessities like grocery prices, is higher than it needed to be. We're being taxed on everything and anything possible. Like misal hai rahi hai, tax pe raha hai. Literally, there's an environmental tax you're getting, right? Except you see a difference at the end of the day. Like, do I believe it comes from a very neoliberal consensus? Yes. But is there still a difference between our economic standpoints when it feeds into our social standpoints? Also, yes. So I'm not too concerned that we aren't doing this.
Interesting. I'll tell you my point of view on this. I started this small business, right? So I got to know how much red tape I had to go through, regulations and whatnot. The basic premise of any capitalist country is free market. Have regulations. I'm all up for regulations, but don't have too many regulations that the business can't thrive or the business can't really innovate, right? Now I have a question for you. So this, I need your information. I need some information from you. Is there's no tax on groceries that is implemented a day or two ago?
Yeah.
How long it's gonna stay for?
All due honesty. I'm glad you laughed. How long is it gonna stay for? Is there like
They can't do that forever. So
not that long. I feel like you're gonna see the result of this you're gonna see the effects elsewhere, right? There's no way they're taking taxes off of one of our like most taxed things. Like even if you're not paying income tax because you're earning in cash or whatever, you're still buying groceries. You're
That's
still
right.
paying that tax. Grocery tax is the one thing that you're making like blind amount of money from. And it's going towards like a lot of useful things too. I feel like either they're gonna result this in increasing tax elsewhere or it's gonna change with the next government. And if not, it's gonna like again, you're seeing other elections coming out. I don't want to make bets on this. But I feel like this is a very heavily like it's just this government that's going to be able to do it, and if they do, I'm not fully sure how successful it's going to be and how our ratio for tax bracket's going to get affected for this as well, considering you need to make it up from somewhere, right? You're losing how much, you need to make it up.
yeah, you brought up a very cool point. I mean, if you're taking this revenue source down, how are you complementing it?
Yeah. Not to mention, I feel like as far as markets go for innovation, like grocery stores for Canada are like that one, well, not just grocery stores, but I want to say mainly grocery stores because the tax isn't fully on grocery stores. It's specifically on food and drink products within grocery stores. So I feel like to an extent, you can manage this. This, like, it's not like it's impossible, except it's gonna interfere with a lot of other things. Like, for example, if I'm looking at, like, you know, specific non-perishable food items,
Yeah.
right? Now you're gonna start seeing governments that are gonna come after this. They can't get rid of this. They're gonna seem like the bad guy. So they're gonna start putting little cuts, little parameters that eventually is gonna get tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter until you have taxes again. First thing you're gonna see is like specific type of perishable food items and specific type of like
They'll
hyper processed
slowly
food
start
items.
bringing back with.
And the best part is, by the time another government tries bringing it back, this government's already going to have a solution to, you know, make ends meet from somewhere else. So that result concept, right?
Yeah.
You're going to find a substitute. So you're going to have that substitute, and you're also going to have these taxes come right back. At one point, you're just going to see like more taxes.
And no, I truly believe that people's habit don't change overnight, right? So if you're doing no taxes on grocery, that puts some money back into the residents' pockets, right? But it's not that they're going to save that money. They're going to go back into the economy, spend it somewhere else, right? So, in that regards, I don't know if the government actually needs to complement it back, because they for sure, or to some degree, know that that money will flood back into the economy. Because let's say if someone is, instead of spending $100, is now their bill is 60 or 80, let's say, right? Now they have 20 extra dollars to go down to that restaurant and spend there. So
I mean, but you also need to see it from a lens of like, now that restaurants earning more, you're still paying the same amount of taxes at that restaurant. Unless, again, you increase the taxes somewhere else, or you create some sort of new like tax, like demographic, which is nearly impossible now considering, again, you get taxed on everything already. That demographic concept, not possible. At least, not immediately possible. Think of it this way, like even if I have those 20 extra dollars and I'm going and spending it on like a lunch, the government is still only pocketing the same amount as they would have if they didn't take away those taxes.
Groceries, yeah.
Like that, like if you're looking at it from a cut perspective, they're still getting the same amount of cut from your sandwich as they were earlier.
It's not increasing or anything, yeah.
Which means, again, to make ends meet and to make sure that we don't suddenly have a gap, they're gonna need to substitute it somewhere else. And it's not just groceries, by the way. There's also, like just a few days ago, the NDP government also released new information about how like all transit fares for youth under 18 are free, all cost. Yes, fun fact. Just keep your student ID with you at all times. But like this is what I mean. If you're making so many cuts, like we saw it.
Are we going
gas.
down to socialism again with all these cuts and replacing? Okay.
I mean, hey, you sometimes question that with the NDP.
If you start giving cuts, let's say, right, you as a party, as a government, starts giving cuts, let's say, no fares, okay, no grocery tax. I'll come along, and my agenda then will be, okay, you say no tax on this and that, I'll say no tax on this, right? This is a slippery slope. So, in my opinion, again.
I mean, or it could also be used as a good distraction. Like, oh, you've been complaining about inflation so much. We'll give you this one thing, and now you won't complain for another 3 years. Because excuse to like, tax kis cheez di complain kar rahe ho, you know? And like it could go both ways.
And it's a tactic the governments use, because you say the elections are right around the corner, right?
Yeah.
No tax karange. We have a point to speak about. See, we did this for you. And I remember when NDP came in power, they said no tax on gas. Is that still true?
I mean, it changed with some parameters. It wasn't directly gas. It was like the environmental component that you pay for gas prices. That was no longer in effect. However, are we still seeing gas prices rise for other reasons? Yes, we are. So is the government still, like, is it the concept of like, oh my God, is the government losing money? No, because gas prices are still rising. You just aren't paying what you were initially paying with this title on it. So again, now let's take a look at the NDP government. Environmental taxes are down for gas, specifically gas. You're looking at youth taxes for like transit being cut down, and mind you, our transit already had a problem. Why we needed to completely change routes it was this past summer where like a bunch
they did
of
a
buses,
reshuffle, and completely changed the route.
They need to add transit buses as well to our city because we didn't have enough to actually like keep up with the population that was using transit.
Yeah.
And aside from that, they also cut it. So now you have more with less cost that's going into it. Something's not adding up there.
I don't think it's sustainable for long run because...
Exactly. And that is, again, one of the biggest issues that people have been voicing with the NDP government. Do I feel like these things do need to happen? Yes. Do I feel like you should be cutting out environmental taxes? No, because at the end of the day, that was going somewhere productive, right? We need more ethical ways that are longer lasting, that are also slow burns. Like you can't, again, like you said, no one can just change overnight, right? Same way, you can't just cut off 3 types of taxes overnight.
Nope.
You needed this to happen under a longer time period. So it happened slowly by like substituting in the things that you're missing out of it. And then it needed to happen in a way where you're actually like passing long-term legislation.
You gotta do it in a sustainable way. I couldn't agree more with you. So, because if you start cutting taxes, you're depleting your treasure. And how else you gonna bring prosperity to society if you don't have any treasure left? I need to ask you one thing. Okay. Healthcare.
I feel like you really wanted to have this interview with a minister.
Yeah. get me connected, and I'll love to talk to them as well
I'd
eventually.
be happy to.
Yeah, but I'm loving the conversation, to be honest.
I'm glad.
See, that's why I wanted to get out of those stores and speak with people like you with higher perspective, who understands ki chal raha hai and can make sense of it, predict future, or have better judgment. And we need more of that. So yeah, thanks for doing this. And healthcare.
Healthcare.
I'll give you my stance first, and then you can add to it or subtract from it. Take care. I truly believe in a capitalist society. There are some sectors you have to leave outside of profit.
Yeah.
In that regards, Canada has done a great job. Universal healthcare, good for everyone, regardless of where you come from, how much you earn, and whatnot. Okay? But on the other hand, if you are not able to keep your services to the mark, have some outside help. Have a hybrid system to compensate, or something that actually works for the people in a much better effective manner.
I agree. I feel like the concept of healthcare for us is great comparatively to other countries. Like, I am thankful. And I completely agree with you as well when it comes to, like, that doesn't change the fact that our system is completely sufficing what we actually need. When it comes to our healthcare system's, like, capability of providing, I feel like we saw in COVID how well it can actually stay standing, right? It's great. I agree with hybrid systems. However, I also do believe in the fact that hybrid systems in other countries have led to your governmental provided facilities decreasing. Like, their standard of care
They
decreasing.
step back. Okay, the
right?
government step back. Yeah.
And in case if you have hybrid systems, it's going to be like the first option for anyone that has the money to spend. And the biggest problem with that is now you're left with middle and lower class families that are in the governmental, like, care.
Struggling, yeah.
Which is why we've seen the standard of care decrease in other countries. Again, perfect example of this would be India. We technically have a hybrid system. It is a market. It is a straight market. It is inevitable, in case if you have a hybrid system, to not let it become a market just because of the way, like, we function as, like you're mentioning, as a capitalist society, right? I agree with the concept. I feel like we do need to have, like, branched methods. For example, why is it taking about a year if you're non-emergency to get an MRI? Like, a year. I had to get an MRI. The reason I can say this is because I'm talking about personal experiences. I'm an athlete. I've had multiple injuries, and not that long ago, I had a jaw dislocation where my disc was completely, like, out of place, and my jaw would just lock, so I wouldn't be able to open my mouth. And I talk for a living, so that's concerning. And I also had, like, the doctor, there wasn't a final verdict yet, but I needed to get tested to decide if I had nerve damage in my right arm or not, which is my dominant hand.
What were you playing? What sports?
I play badminton, and I also do taekwondo.
Okay.
So again, taekwondo, you have a combat sport. I've left both of them now because my body is incapable of now letting me do that.
Mm-hmm.
And the best part is, when I was non-emergency, so when they just needed to see what was happening with my disc, the wait time was over a year. And then I went swimming because I'm like, like, why not? And it wasn't even like swimming with friends. I started swimming again professionally, and I was just warming up in the water. That's it, just warming up. I was mid-water, my jaw locks. I come up for air, I can't breathe.
Oh boy.
So I almost drowned to death, and because that was a near-death experience, I went into the emergency list for an MRI. It still took 8 months. I went from a year and a few months to 8 months when it was noted down on our documents as a near-death experience. Which means
it still took 8 months.
Which means if it was critical, I could have died. Like, imagine people needing MRIs, or not just MRIs, but imagine people needing these type of vital scans for things like cardio or neuro conditions.
Or surgeries. Let's say if there is a surgery that needs to be done right away because comes to life and death, and you can't access the doctor or whatnot. So
yeah. So it's parts like this where I'm like, oh my God, where are we standing? But on the other hand, I'm really like, I feel like we need to have branch systems where we're okay with having, like, do I fully understand what this would look like just yet? No. Because again, this would translate to a hybrid system. However, it can't be a hybrid system because you're trying to avoid medicine turning into a market, right?
Yeah.
So you're left with options of having more facilities that are governmental provided. And at the end of the day, you're again back to the topic of where can we increase the structure from? Well, you need more money for that. You're right back to taxes. You want stuff like, scans to be faster, surgeries to go faster.
MRI machines,
you need
more
to
tax.
support specialists more. We don't pay our nurses enough. It's a dying, it is not a dying field. Oh my God. It is a thriving field. However, same with education, less and less people are pursuing it because of the way of living that they provide. Nurses went on strike for a while back, but about pay, about just stuff, their working hours, about things that are covered under their insurances, which is great, but not enough according to the way they work. Same with our education system. So again, I feel like healthcare is such a big gap for us because we're doing so good at not turning this into a market. But then now you're looking at okay, what am I sacrificing?
Wait times and
right?
Inaccessibility. Yeah.
The concept comes back to what am I sacrificing at the end of the day. I'm still more thankful that I have a Canadian healthcare system than comparatively other countries.
And I couldn't agree more. But we have the greatest healthcare system in some regards. It is lacking behind in some aspects. And I truly believe if the government comes in and says, okay, we're trying to have a market, but there's a cap. Okay, this surgery costs this much, this costs this much, and there is this fixed table, can't charge more than this. And that table is derived from median wages and whatnot. So, making it accessible. Let's say if you have eight months of wait for a scan, but you can go this different route where you spend $50, $70, $100 for a scan. I don't know, but
I should mention it would cost a lot more than that.
I know.
The problem is you can't pay a specific ratio because people are already technically paying ratios when it comes to dentistry. The field, if I'm going and getting whatever, a root canal done, right? I'm paying a ratio of that. That's where insurances come under. I would argue it's still not a market. However, if you start implying that to other things, then you're missing out on an entire low income, economic class. Because you need to remember, there's people lower than middle class, but they still are employed, do have jobs, do have some coverage. What about them, right? That's where this becomes a barrier for millions of people there.
Interesting.
If it doesn't show, I feel like one of the other reasons I'm nonpartisan pretty strictly, I don't know if you can tell this or not, I hate politics.
You hate
with
politics?
A burning passion.
But you talk about it very passionately. I mean...
I should also specify that. I feel like this was one of the biggest things where people do get confused, and I feel like it's so important for me to mention whenever I'm in a really political conversation. The reason I'm involved in politics is because of how much I hate it. I feel like we are doing such a shit job right now. I don't know how else to explain it, right? We have gaps in literally every field you're thinking of. Again, as I was mentioning earlier, it doesn't matter what government you're looking at. At the end of the day, it's banter, not people-centric.
Say it again, sorry.
It's all banter.
It's all
no one's actually giving a shit about what individuals are going through, what daily lived experiences are like, how we can actually address concerns of the job market, right? You're looking at generic livelihood necessities. You are incapable of fulfilling that. You're trying to have whatever other inputs with other countries.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
But that's the problem with every single government.
Pumping money out to some wars or whatnot, take care of your own people first, and then maybe go outside. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not you should be able to go outside. This makes me sound conservative.
And this is age-old concept ki pehle aapde ghar da dhyan rakho and then go look for your neighbors.
Exactly. And yet every single country is I don't want to say naam de piche lag gaya hoya, considering each country already has its respective fame behind
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Except every single country, at the end of the day, on a global scale, सारे नाम पे लगे हुए हैं, right?
Wanna sound good or wanna
But my
look
problem with
good.
politics came under the fact that, like, the reason I got so involved right off the bat was because, like, I love the way governance works. I feel like we've lost morality in governance.
Mm-hmm.
We sometimes have lost the concept that if you are an elected official, your job is not to represent your party, it is to represent the people that voted for you. There's a big difference in that. You're representing a party.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be representing people. And this is exactly why I got so involved. Because, like, now we have an entire, like, every single class of people you're looking at, everyone wants change or innovation or, mediation of some sort. Every single one of them. Ho kaise da nahi raha.
Isn't that old thing that you're trying to repackage the same thing over and over and trying to pursue people, but
Which is why
ho kisse da nahi raha, yeah.
ho kaise da nahi raha, and that's why I feel like it is so important for us to have young minds into politics. क्योंकि सानू ये दिखता, you know, like the concept of how it works within your families when it comes to traditions. अब बहुत जल्दी फड़ लेने कि मम्मी नहीं आता पुरानी चीज़ आ आप ऐदा नहीं करीदा, or like, oh, like this is tradition but you need to let go of whatever, or you're like, I feel
You're
like
supposed to do this because that's how it's been done for the years. Yeah.
I feel like as a young adult in this generation, you've been given a platform in any field that you get to be a critic. Right? That's Gen Z nu sare tangi isliye ki jo dekho they're complaining, right?
Yeah.
You get to be a critic, now get involved and do something
But
about
they're
it.
complaining about the things that don't really even matter because my Wi-Fi slow, this, that. I'm on TikTok all day, and
And like you see stuff like, oh my god, like main kaam te gayi si, you know, my boss is treating me poorly with work hours, or you know, the way I'm getting paid is so wrong, or meri insurance is nahi covered, but I'm non-political. Main politics ch banda nahi.
isn't that saying that my hand hurts, but I'm not going to do anything about it? Because go find what your government is doing. You don't have to be fully involved, like I said earlier, but dhyan ta rakho ki what is going on.
Yeah, which is why, like, you know how you're asking me about, oh my god, okay, what are your opinions on, like, so-and-so thing that happened in the world? I can tell you an answer for that, because mera ta kam hai cheeza bare janna.
Yeah.
What about people that are living in the same societies? And, like, for example, I can bet you I go to majority of the people my age
Yep.
that are currently pursuing higher education and ask them about this, and they'd be like, oh, aage aisa nu pata hi nahi, aisi dekhya hi nahi. They're so far away from the news. They're so far away from current, like, global things, because we fed a mentality of, like, paise kamane. That's
True.
it.
Yeah.
ਹੁਣ ਪੈਸੇ ਕਮਾਣੇ ਆ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਐਥਿਕਸ ਕੀ ਨੇ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਪੈਸੇ ਕਮਾਣੇ ਆ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਰਿਲੇਸ਼ਨਸ਼ਿਪਸ ਨੂੰ ਲਾਈਕ
ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਬਾਉਂਡਰੀਜ਼ ਕੀ ਹੈ, ਪ੍ਰਿੰਸੀਪਲਸ ਕੀ ਹੈ, it's all washed away.
and it's like, okay, cool, so in India you have the concept of like ਪੈਸੇ ਕਮਾਣੇ ਆ, civic sense ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ ਇੱਥੇ, it's like ਪੈਸੇ ਕਮਾਣੇ ਆ and elitism ਵੀ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ. Like at the end of the day they're not very different. Like the ideology differs because, oh my god, I feel like our society does such a better job at being neoliberal, but at the end of the day, like, we're feeding into the same things. We don't know what to get involved in. We don't realize that everything is centered around politics. We don't realize that, like, I tell this to all of my friends all the time. I don't care if you're going into the medical field, you should be politically aware. Your field is directly being affected by this. Tanu dar kyun nahi lag raha? Like,
Yeah, because the head of the state or whosoever is governing, you should know what his thoughts are, how he's going to lead us, and where is he heading all of us. Trajectory ki hai,
yeah.
right? And especially if you are, I haven't made up my mind if I'm going to live in Canada, right? I'm still debating myself ki if this is the country or I need to move with my wife or whatnot. ठीक है? This country gave me a lot, no doubt. मेरे golden years इत्थे निकले and I love this country for all that it gave me. ठीक है? But at the same time, as a guy, I need to protect people around me, right? And I'll make sure कि I'm in a country जिसकी trajectory वधिया लग रही है. Okay, it's in an upward trajectory, not a downward spiral. So I'll make sure of that, right? So that's why I make it my own duty कि मैं समझा, okay, this is going on, that is going on, what affects me, what doesn't affect me. Okay, we can focus on this. And yeah, it's but to say एक बड़ा सही point किया है कि youth should be more into politics, but they won't because they are all distracted.
I mean, that's where I feel like a lot of my work comes under when I work to advise ministers. Like, okay, I'm sitting there, I'm not advising you on like to see apne, like I am. There have been moments, right? I'm not advising you directly on like, oh my God, tade, alliances need to be more here. Your, so and so capita needs to reach here. No. What I'm advising you on is how can we incorporate people's understanding into this? Because at the end of the day, the main goal of everything that you're doing is you're doing this for the people. Can they even understand what you're doing? Right off the bat. After that, how can we incorporate this to actually access everyone? क्योंकि हुण ये चीज़ easy तरीके नाल समझ लो जिहड़ी चीज़ तुहानूं पता नहीं है कि चल किद्दां रही है तुसीं उहनूं अपना किद्दां लओगे right? For example, if you don't know तुहानूं कोई benefits मिल रहे आ ਉਹ benefits ਮਿਲਣ ਦਾ ਫਾਇਦਾ ਕੀ government ਤਾਂ like technically the government has an excuse ਕਿ ਉਹ ਆ ਪੈਸੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਪਏ ਆ ਜੋ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਆ right? You need to know how this is working, which is where like I come in, right? Again, Manitoba Student Advisory Council, the way that worked was they would tell us like, oh, ਅਸੀਂ ਆਹ policy plan ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ, this is our draft for it, this is how we're planning on taking this up, this is what it'll affect, how it'll affect the timeline for the policy, and like the funding budget, blah blah, like ਕੌਣ ਕਿੱਧਰੋਂ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਕੁ ਭਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਵਾ ਹੈ ਨਾ because ਕਈ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਸਕੂਲ ਡਿਵੀਜ਼ਨ ਪੇ ਕਰਦਾ ਵਾ, ਕਈ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਲਈ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਕੂਲ ਡਿਵੀਜ਼ਨ ਨੂੰ ਡਾਇਰੈਕਟਲੀ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟਲ ਫੰਡਿੰਗ ਮਿਲਦੀ ਆ, ਕਈ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ are like set aside that you get out of like initiatives too, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ technically the school division does earn to an extent, right? Like free education, but
it does make money to support the operations or whatnot,
right?
Yeah.
So the way that would work is I would sit there on a table with 20 other people that are involved on like youth, 20 other youth that are involved on a federal and or provincial and or municipal level, and then we would all stand there and give advice कि आह clause aa cheez sahi nahi lag rahi, or how are we changing that, or how is it, like we would be active critics to the bill, and it doesn't matter who the government is. Again, jo main shuru kita si it was the Conservatives, jo main khatam kita it was the NDP. It shouldn't matter who it is, it matters about how are we actually making things accessible and understandable, kyunki jo tak tusi, I feel like this happens on a purpose. ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ wording ਜਾਂ ਆਪਣਾ process ਹੀ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਰ ਦੋਗੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਮਝ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਂਦਾ, right? Then it's perfect for you. ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਰੀਪ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨੀ, and if it's bad ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਮਝ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਣੀ.
Like you said earlier ਕਿ people have been so busy in making the money ਕਿ ਸਾਰਾ ਧਿਆਨ ਉੱਥੇ ਚਲਾ ਗਿਆ, and now because this requires attention, focus, energy, right? ਇੱਦਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ, you know yourself ਕਿ ਜਦ ਤੁਸੀਂ close ਬਣਾ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਇਹ ਸਭ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ, it takes time, effort, everything, right? So, and not every resident or individual has that time to put in to see कि okay क्या pass हो रहा है, की pass हो रहा है, की नहीं. And yeah,
I feel like the bigger standpoint also comes under like excited the youth that isn't involved, they're completely disconnected versus the ones that are. For example, mere aaspaas edda de main it's the same 20 names in our province that'll show up over and over and over again. And for example, like again, mera first year mainu grade 12 graduate unu haje kuch mahine bhi nahi hoye hai na, like it hasn't been a full year yet. I've been involved since grade 9 in like the most random stuff that you could possibly think of, except grade 9 to leke hun tak I've seen a common trend ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ, ਭਾਵੇਂ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਵੇਟ ਸਕੂਲ ਕਿਡਸ ਹੋਣ, right, ਭਾਵੇਂ ਉਹ ਇੱਥੇ ਦੇ born ਹੋਣ, there's some international students that I've met, there's some like freshly came to Canada families that I've met too. It's the same people that continue. For example, Youth Parliament of Manitoba, right? I've been with that organization for about 3 years now. ਤੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੋਕ ਸੀ are the same people I met in debate, are the same people I met on the Manitoba Student Advisory Council, are the same people that I now met in this year's university elections. ਮੇਰੇ against ਨਹੀਂ ਖੜਿਆ ਸੀ, ਪਰ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਮੁੰਡਾ ਖੜਿਆ ਸੀ for executive, same guy.
The thing is politics, ਦੂਰੋਂ ਕੀ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਹੈ they are into politics, and politics has got a dirty name to it and what not ਕਿ okay ਆ ਲੋਕ ਤਾਂ back bitching ਕਰਦੇ ਇਹ ਉਹ, because politics ਦੀ image ਜਿਹੜੇ propaganda ਨੇ ਬਣਾਈ ਹੈ, especially if you watch some movies related to politics, it's a lot more backstabbing and under the table deals and
no, but it is.
It 100% it is. It is no. Yeah, but bad rap मिल गया ना फिर politics ਨੂੰ.
But that's what I'm saying. ਹੁਣ bad rap ਹੈਗਾ ਵਾ, but ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੋਕੀ dedicated ਨੇ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਮਤਲਬ hypothetical example, after not hypothetical, literal example, after grade 12, all these people graduated.
Yeah.
I decided to stay in Manitoba because chalo mere ta mumma ne tamki ditti si vi je tu inni choti umar de kite move मैं naal move hona. But that's besides the point, right? Like I stayed in Manitoba for that reason. Like my family wasn't they weren't ready to let me go just yet. But also because I realized the type of base I built in Manitoba is really strong. Like मैं genuinely gym ministers नाल मेरा काम चल रहा है इस वक्त. Why would I move to another province and start from scratch when there's probably another Harisharan in some other province
who's already taken care of all that what you're doing here?
Not even care. It's like, oh, they go no jagah hegi ya. Now we're in competition. The point of politics shouldn't be कि मैं किसी ना compete कर रही हूँ. Again, this is what our ministers need to understand. You are not meant to be in competition with whoever you're working with. You're supposed to work for like the greater cause together. But ਹੁਣ ਇਹ same ਚੀਜ਼ ਦੇਖ ਲਓ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹ weak ਬੱਚੇ ਜਿਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਮੈਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਹਾਂ, those are the same students ਹੁਣ ਜਿਹੜੇ University of Toronto, University of Ottawa, Quebec ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ main university ਹੈ ਉੱਥੇ
UBC ਚਲੇ ਗਏ ਹਾਂਜੀ
right. Every single one of them ਇਸ ਸਾਲ as a first year student ਕਿਸੇ ਨਾ ਕਿਸੇ club ਦੇ executive member ਬਣੇ ਨੇ, ਕਿਸੇ ਨਾ ਕਿਸੇ faculty of student association ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ part ਲਿੱਤਾ ਵਾ, and ਉਹਨਾਂ ਚੋਂ 4-5 ਨੇ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਜਾਂ ਦੂਸਰੇ ਸਾਲ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ which is unheard of by the way, ਆਪਣੀ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਲਿੱਤਾ ਹੈ
ਬਾਹਰ ਜਾ ਕੇ. They could have then done all this here as well, or ਮਤਲਬ starting ਤੋਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਸੀ.
But that's the point. ਜੇ ਇੱਧਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਤਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਫਿਰ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਸਰੇ ਦਾ officially competition ਬਣ ਜਾਣਾ ਸੀ. ਹੁਣ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਮੈਂ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦੀ ਆਈ ਹਾਂ right, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਇੱਕ ਬੌਂਡ ਜਿਹਾ ਬਣਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਵਾ. ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਪਰ ਅੰਦਰ ਹੀ ਅੰਦਰ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਦਿਖ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਦਿਖ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ ਵੀ at the end of the day ਆਪਾਂ ਹੈਗੇ ਪੋਲਿਟਿਕਸ ਦੇ ਜੀ ਹਾਂ. doesn't matter ਮੂੰਹ ਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਕੁ ਮਿੱਠੇ ਹੋਈਏ, ਕਿੰਨੇ ਕੁ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਾਫੀ ਡੇਟਸ ਕਰ ਲਈਏ ਜਾਂ whatever. You are going to turn into competition the second elected positions come into account. And I'm so glad they moved away. Neeta, is saal, you would have probably seen so many more at that tagde level the youth involved in just University of Manitoba's elections, which there still are by the way. Apne जिन्ने भी साल खड़े ने, like for example ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮੇਰੇ against competitor खड़ी सी Minna, she was in her 3rd year. She was in University of Manitoba's governance the ਜਿਹੜਾ board I mean. She was also pre-law society ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ organization she was the president for that. ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ she like ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਉਹਨੇ ਕੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀ, like she was also on Senate blah blah. ਐਦਾਂ ਦੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਫਿਰ ਬਾਅਦ ਚੋਂ ਰਨ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਾਰਾ friend group ਹੈ ਇਹ ਚਾਹਣ ਨਾ ਚਾਹਣ they get involved. I would argue youth is really involved in politics because ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇੰਨਾ ਪਤਾ ਵਾ ਵੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਇਸ ਫੀਲਡ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਸਰੇ ਦੇ ਅਗੇਂਸਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਖੜਨ ਜਾਣਾ, ਆਪਾਂ ਇਸ ਫੀਲਡ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿਸੇ ਇੱਕ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਨਾਲ ਐਸੋਸੀਏਟ ਕਰਕੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਖੜਨਾ. ਹਾਂ ਕਈ ਕਰਦੇ ਵੀ ਨੇ right. For example, the NDP convention that recently happened, I saw a lot of people from like my university.
Were you there?
Students there. No,
okay.
Again, strictly non-partisan. But the point is I feel like youth understand ਵੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਚੀਜ਼ ਤੇ ਬੰਨ ਕੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਹਿਣਾ, ਜਿੰਨਾ ਕੁ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਕਰੋ. Be
flexible and
not even be flexible, branch out as much as possible. Like literally become a tree. Like flexibility ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਨਾ ਹੋਵੇ ਜਿਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਤੇ ਡਟ ਕੇ right. But branch out. So just because you created an opinion in one place, keep that opinion but branch out to another one too. So ਜੇ ਮੈਂ ਕੋਈ ਨਵੀਂ ਚੀਜ਼ ਸਿੱਖ ਰਹੀ ਹਾਂ, it's not like ਮੈਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਪੁਰਾਣੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਮਿਟਾ ਕੇ ਨਵੀਂ ਚੀਜ਼ ਸਿੱਖ ਰਹੀ ਹਾਂ. ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੋਵੇ ਕਿ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਸੋਚਦੀ ਸੀ, ਆਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਮੈਂ ਇਸ ਲਈ ਸੋਚੀ ਸੀ. Is it wrong? ਨਹੀਂ, ਨਵੀਂ ਚੀਜ਼ ਵੀ ਆਪਣਾ ਪੁਰਾਣੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਵੀ ਰੱਖੋ. I feel like youth is doing such a better job at that versus what you're seeing in government right now a lot of times is people switch parties. ਪੁਰਾਣੀ ਭੁੱਲ ਕੇ ਨਵੀਂ ਫੜਨੀ. But we need a bit of both. Again, I feel like youth involvement, it's so much more necessary. ਆਪਣੇ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ politicians ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਇਹ realize ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਵਾ ਵੀ in Manitoba specifically, more compared to other provinces than what I've seen, our youth is really, really, really driven. Because, for example, ਮੇਰੇ ਘਰੇ ਆਬੀ ਖਾਨ ਤੋਂ letter ਆਈ ਸੀ. Literally a few days ago, ਮੈਂ ਆਪਣਾ mailbox check ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਹਾਂ. There's a letter from our leader of opposition. ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਮ ਤੇ ਆਇਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਵਾ. ਮੇਰੇ parents ਦੇ ਨਾਮ ਤੇ ਵੀ ਆ ਸਕਦਾ ਸੀ. But nahi aaya, naam mera si, and it was an entire letter. It was like talking about, you know, how he's a critic, how he wants to hear from families, how he wanted us to give feedback to whatever the government is currently up to. There's an entire strategy behind anu mere naam te rakhna is because he's met me at a lot of professional events. So he now knows we youth nu address karo. ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਭੇਜੂੰਗਾ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਮਝਣਾ ਵਾ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ families ਜੇ immigrants ਨੇ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ families ਨੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਹੱਦ ਤੱਕ they don't care about what's happening, they might not
They'll
even go,
ignore it, yeah.
or they might not educate themselves. I get the youth on my side, automatically I get like 10 ਹੋਰ like ਇੱਕ ਇਨਸਾਨ ਦੀ at least 3 ਵੋਟਾਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਨਾਲ ਮਿਲਣਗੀਆਂ.
And the voice of youth is much louder than the voice of, you know, people.
And I feel like we just need to continue that. Every single government, you hear something coming from youth driven sources coming out. ठीक है? Like कोई भी country च होवे है ना, India which I would argue youth is still really involved. India
It's highly involved, yeah, 100%.
Right? So it doesn't matter what country you're looking at. Doesn't matter to see दुनिया ਦੇ ਕਿਹੜੇ time ਵੱਲ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ. Even during the world wars, youth had involvement in whatever ways. So, right? We end up missing the Josh, like Marjan at that one point. And then we let the next youth take over. But jada which gap on that, that's like you sort of let yourself simmer down and cool down. And then that's where you see governments just turn you sort of into like a capitalistic clone. Like you're officially in the job market. You now have to abide by us. As youth, I feel like we have so much that we're capable of doing. And that's why like a lot of what I did was push for youth to get more involved. Right? University of Manitoba, which I had the privilege this year, UNICEF, do you know what UNICEF is?
Yeah, United Nations International Children Education Fund, I guess. Yeah.
I had the privilege this year, UNICEF Canada di mein branch ek provincially khol saka. The second it opened, university de which we had like ek position. Very nice.
You're still traveling.
Sorry. Like ek position we had almost 30 people apply for individual positions, which tells me that youth is really interested. They want to get involved. They aren't given the parameters to, and that's where we lose a lot of what we're seeing nowadays.
Interesting. I mean, the way you have situationed yourself or positioned yourself is great. You're getting out there, trying to impress the youth or put an impression on the youth. Okay, politics is not as bad. Come on in. Let's drive this province, and why not? And I think there is this trend going on. If you see Mamdani recently, if you see how New York mayors have been in past, how old they have been, and now there is a transition to Mamdani. We'll see how he does things. But yeah, thanks Harisharan for doing this. I had a great conversation.
I'm glad. Thank you for having me.